All right, welcome back to Sales Life. My co-host and good buddy, some would say best friend, Sean Ward, live in California, 7:30 in the morning, almost 8. I actually struggled to get up. Sean beat me to the punch here on Eastern time, but we're back. Sean, we had a successful pilot.
Yeah, man, we're back for number 2 of this well thought out, highly planned podcast that I've always wanted to do. So, yes.
You sound apprehensive. Anyway, moving on. So, I hope you had a great week. So, I wanted to start us off with a word that tends to flow into my business and become a huge part of it. And I've had sort of a love-hate relationship with it. So, I'm very curious about you. And the word is intensity.
Oh.
Okay.
I thought the word was going to be content, because that's a word I do not like, but okay. Intensity.
Okay, noted. So Shane Parrish writes this is what I live this entire week by. So I read this quote every morning, tried to infuse my work with this idea. You don't need more intensity, you need more consistency. Intensity impresses, consistency transforms. So very good, like 2 weeks ago for me, felt like I had zero momentum. Coming into this week, the goal was use consistency to establish momentum versus trying to be intense. So, the purpose of this podcast is to improve the sales life through friendship, hear about each other's experiences, learn from one another. What has been your relationship with intensity in the business? Like, has that been a good thing for you? A bad thing for
honestly,
you?
I think this flows right from what we were talking about last time with this fear-based mindset, right?
Yes.
Because a lot of that intensity for me early on was the intensity of, it was like survival, right? I showed up at work and made cold calls with the intensity of someone who was trying to survive, because I was newly married, and at the time I was making $28,000 a year supporting my wife, who was finishing university and waiting tables, and trying to start a life. And I grew up in New York, came out to California. I just did it like on my own. It wasn't like there wasn't like a lot of fallback other than tuck tail and drive back to New York, I guess, but that wasn't really in the cards for me. So yeah, I think I approached work with a lot of intensity early on. We just hired somebody on our team, and part of the offer letter that we sent is a new sales person on the team. The offer letter said brokerage is, what did it say exactly? Brokerage is a marathon that you have to run at a sprinter's pace. And I think...
Wow. Sounds healthy.
It's super healthy. I think it's true, though, when you're starting out. I think you got to think about where you are in your career. I think you got to just muscle and push through in the beginning. But for sure, that will not carry you past the beginning.
Well, it's unsustainable, right?
Yeah.
And there's a beauty. Like, I lean, as a personality, I lean more towards intensity than consistency. And I have zero doubt that it is the consistent people in this business that are the ones that are ultimately successful. Because it doesn't need to be a show. They don't need to work themselves up to doing these miraculous calls or whatever. It's just, I'm going to consistently call 30 people a day. And it's blocked out, and I do it. I don't tweet about it. I don't post about it. Like, I just do it. And I feel like I'm always trying to get myself to do it. So I've had an interesting relationship with intensity.
It depends on your personality too, right? My personality, I'm just constant. I'm steady. I don't have a lot of peaks and valleys. I mean, even in, like, as my wife would say, like, even the way you talk, it's just all kind of steady. I don't have emotional highs and lows. Like, it is, it's pretty steady. So
that's a gift, man.
Yeah, it is. But like for me, I got to pump up the intensity part. Like that's what I need to pay attention to. Others may say, hey, I need to work on my consistency. It's like, well, I got that in spades. I have to work on the intensity. I got to show up with some energy. That's my big downfall.
I'm going to be taking advice for you, and I'm officially going to ask you to mentor me here on the pod.
Yes. Let's go.
Because I'm the opposite. So I live in those peaks and valleys, and the point is to actually write a lot about that and think about that, because I'm encouraging myself to live above the peaks and valleys of the business. Yeah. I won't say that like the success of deals per se is like affecting my identity. Certainly I want deals to close and to be successful. So I don't mean that. I think there are people starting out right now, maybe even listening to this, that are beginning to understand I cannot let what other people do affect how I feel about my self-worth, right?
Mm. Okay, so you're 6 years in, right?
Yes.
Okay, you still have these emotional highs and lows with deals? I would imagine, like, get hired is emotional high, close a deal is a high, lose a deal, get fired or something is a low. I mean, are you feeling that roller coaster ride?
I would say closing has started to be like the sad thing. Oh. To me, as weird as it is. I mean, obviously that's how we make money and you make paychecks, but I've started to notice that like the emotional rush of a deal, some of which is very healthy, that I love and I'm going back for more and more, and that sort of ends at the closing. Yeah. So I think for me right now, like I pulled up to a cookout last night at 6 p.m. Eastern. By the way, I've never shared about time zones in my life until we started our podcast/friendship. Yeah. I pulled up around 6 to a cookout, sat in the car from 6 to 8:30 negotiating a deal, which is insane. Actually, someone was on California time for one of our listings now. It's an $8 million listing. Had to be done. Like, we're in the thick of it. They're going back to their client. I'm going back to mine. And at the end of it, I thought two things. Number one, I had talked so much that my jaw literally hurt. Like, I was like, I think I just said 10,000 words. And I need a break. Number two, that was so freaking enjoyable. Yeah. Like, I absolutely loved it. Communicate the idea. Say, come on, man. Like, I was selling it, living it, enjoying it, created a partnership with this other broker. We're trying to get it done together as well as get it done for our clients. I loved it.
Yeah. I love that part of the deal too, right? Of the deal. That's fun. When you're in there and you're like, you know that the success of the deal is hinging upon your ability to just like figure out how to close the gap right at the end. That's a lot of fun. Yeah, but
so you don't. You go ahead.
Go ahead. I was gonna say for us, or for me, like the peak, emotional peak is like when we get hired. I love pitching business. I love getting hired. But we found over the years, like you go from oh my God, we won the business to like literally 2 seconds later, oh my God, like we won this business. Like there's a lot of work to be done. And so it's like, for us, it was always like peak and then immediate emotional valley. And then it's like, okay, time to roll up our freaking sleeves. But thank God, that's why we have the team in place that does a lot of that hard labor.
By the way, kudos to you. I saw that post this week of the picture, but a lot of our listeners may not know. When I say a lot of our listeners, I mean no one's listened yet. So for the 7 or 8 of people out there
our wives have listened.
Yes. Sean is an accomplished photographer, right? So this is maybe something we talk about later, but you've taken a lot of great pictures. The story, I just love the deal story from this week.
Yeah.
$1 million. Was it 1 million square feet that you leased?
1 million square feet. Yeah, we did a lease. It's so funny. You know what? Honestly, the biggest deal of my career, it was the largest lease ever in Orange County, at least on the industrial side. $300 million lease. Probably the one I worked on the least. Honestly, you get to like this level when you're having a major owner, developer, leasing it to a huge corporation. There's like, I think this is where you need to be honest with yourself as a broker, like the amount of value you add and how important you are to the deal. Once you get parties to the table, it's kind of it, honestly. You've got teams of lawyers. You've got C-suite decision makers. This is, let's not fool ourselves in thinking that Sean Ward put this $300 million deal together. I was lucky enough to be a part of it. It was 15 years in the making. And it was, that when we talk about peaks and valleys, emotional peaks and valleys, when I found, and maybe it's just my personality, but I think this is true. Like the further you go in your career, the less of those you have. And I think I think it's like a survival mechanism. You don't get crushed by the lows, right? You can't get crushed by the lows. You lose a deal right on the 1 yard line, you have to just shake it off and just keep moving on. If you can't do that, you won't survive. But if you're 10, 15 years in the business, you've learned to shake those lows off, but you're also less open. You're just more resistant to the highs, right? So you close a major deal.
That's right.
And it doesn't hit you. And it's just like, okay, on to the next. Which isn't right. Like we talk about on our team, like, hey, we need to make time to celebrate deals, big deals.
Yeah. I just did the video on infusing joy into your commercial real estate job. And I'm a big proponent of this. Like, make your job a thrilling adventure, right? And you cannot pretend to enjoy everything that you're going to do in a sales job. It's a joke. You're not going to enjoy everything, but what you can enjoy, you absolutely should. And celebrating was one of those things. Like, stop, celebrate, take the pictures, document it, share, talk about it. I love that.
Go with the team, do something fun, closing dinner,
What
whatever.
was odd earlier in this conversation is apparently you also, so we talked about love-hate with intensity. You have a love-hate relationship with content. This is crazy because I got
just the
Sean
word. Just the word.
Oh, just the word.
Just the word. Okay. Yeah.
So what is good? What is good content for you? What is bad content? Or what is it about the word you don't like?
I think the word content just pulls on images or feelings of just like forced produced stuff for people to consume. And it's I don't know, like I produce a lot of content, right? I'm always writing, posting, now doing videos. But like really my
now
goal
you have a podcast.
Now I have a you have no idea how laughable it is that I have a podcast. I mean, I am the least likely to have a podcast.
Keep saying it over and over again. Just I want to hear it.
Least likely to do video. I mean, this is no joke. Like, there are so many people, I would even say in this industry, in my market, competitors of mine who are so much more qualified to be doing social media, video content, a podcast, just based on their personalities alone and like just their makeup, dispositions. I'm an introvert, hardcore introvert. Like, a lot of this stuff, sometimes I'll post something on LinkedIn and literally feel sick to my stomach for like 15, 20 minutes thinking, man, that was too personal. I just exposed myself too much.
Well, it's funny you say that. So this was a question that I had for you today, if you don't mind. Yeah. Will you take us a little bit into your process? Like, what is the Sean Ward writing process?
My content making process? The content machine?
When you're forcing out
mass-produced, shiny veneer.
And force people to digest this mass-produced content, what is that like for you? Where I was trying to land with the question earlier is like, for me, it's authenticity's got to be the biggest thing. Like, I guess the idea of I have to produce a certain amount of content. If it's forced, I think you just can't be authentic. I can't. Okay, other people can, maybe. I can't. So my process is I get up in the morning and I go to the gym and I come home and get ready and then take my kids to school and I drive to the coffee shop every morning. I don't drink coffee, but I drink tea, and I order my tea and I sit there and I open my phone and I think, what can I post? And I usually, unless I have something at the top of my head, I will look at my Photos app on my phone and look at like, all right, what have I been taking pictures of lately? And sometimes like I'll see a photo and just start queuing off of that. Other times I'll start going through my email and then realize, how you get kicked in the pants on a deal, and then that spurs a thought on a post.
I don't know. I honestly, I don't have like the master plan mapped out, schedule and all that. I'll just post. And you know, the deal or the post I referenced earlier where I literally felt sick to my stomach. I went back and read that yesterday because it was like, you know, had like 200,000 impressions on it. And I felt like I was being so vulnerable. It was all personal, has nothing to do with business. It was like more like about like having a hard time in life and midlife crisis, right? And I felt sick about it. And then I was on a walk and I just posted it, closed the phone, felt sick, prayed, and just said, all right, God, it's in your hand. And like, it got such a good response. And so many people reached out, and not with attaboys or pat on the back, but like, hey, I'm in that place too. I'm going through a hard time. And like, so for me, that was like super rewarding, right? Because it's connecting things that I'm passionate about, which is honestly not, leasing and selling concrete boxes. Like, that's not my primary passion in life. It just isn't. But connecting with people in that way, like that was very rewarding and impactful for me. But it started with just a stream of consciousness, feeling, writing, and then feeling sick about it. So there you have it. There's the content making process.
Yeah, I think that answer is like more than I could have hoped for.
Well, you're different though. You have it down.
I love hearing that. Like I am doing more mass produced stuff, I guess. For me, it's more like what's clever, what's like slightly witty, or can I comment on a shared experience? I don't have anything with 200,000 views. So I kind of long for that. What you're saying is like connecting deeper with, and again, I keep saying this, I don't think I'm repeating myself from our last episode, but the reason it works is because of the credibility you've built. So you can't just start.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge part of it, I think.
Yeah.
Right? It's like I told my 14-year-old this week who is like has feelings for this guy, my 14-year-old daughter, who, and I don't want to make this a parenting podcast, but it's like I'm freaking out. Yeah. And, she's asking about this, and I'm like, I've always told younger people who have asked me, you're not trying to find a person. You're trying to become someone that's worth finding. So like focus on that. Become someone that's worth finding. And
can you text that to me? I need that. That is good.
Yes.
That's really good.
Yes.
Well, hold on, but your process is a lot different. I think you're a genius with video, not just in the production of it, but like what you say and how you pull people into a story. Like you're so good with story, but that can't be off the cuff. Like the way you do video, it's not like, just kind of turn it on and go. I mean, you have to plan that out. So it's different. It's just different mediums too.
I'm trying. I mean, YouTube for me so far has been 7 ways to blank, 3 ways that blank, 10 ways you should consider whatever. And that's easy. Like that's good stuff to make. And within that, I feel like people get comfortable in that format. Okay, I know a list is coming. Good. And then within that list, you can go number 3, let's surprise them. Let's bring in a human element. Let's tell an anecdote here or that sort of thing. To your point, what is that sort of next phase of YouTube? Like some of my most viewed videos have been the vlogs, which this is very interesting, right? Because I never pictured myself vlogging. There's a kind of like a youthful, immature element to that, in a connotation in my mind when someone says, "Hey, I'm a vlogger." It's like, you might have to get a real job. But I vlogged that gala, the strip mall guy gala, and like that's the most viral video I've had or whatever, which was not the goal. The goal was like to document the memories, but there was a little bit of a story.
This leads into a really interesting topic that I'm interested in, and I want to ask you, and maybe we pick this up next time. But
Okay.
Like what is the tie-in for our business of creating content and video content, right? Like, how does this tie in to pushing your business? And because what I've found, I'll tell you my problem is, the more I speak about, post about stuff related to my business, the less eyeballs it gets. The more I say, hey, I'm having a tough time in life, then everybody looks at it. It's like, but I'm not on these platforms to do a spiritual or parenting or midlife crisis type of viewership, and I'm not trying to grow that audience. I'm trying to have owners and occupants of industrial
there's so
property.
much audience for that.
There's a lot of audience, right?
Yeah.
So I think navigating that, or even just figuring out like where does this go? How can you lead to the people that you're trying to connect? Like maybe you've got it figured out, but I think that's what we got to talk about.
No, I mean, yes, we can pick this up next time, but I guess I'll end with this. Can you organize your content in a way where people say, hey, it feels like I already know you? Like, that to me is where there have been a couple times where people have reached out and there's this feeling of like, I already kind of know you. And you're in chapter 3 or 4 versus the prologue with people that have gone on a journey with you. Like this guy who reached out about that New York City video was like, I know strip mall guy, he's like ultra viral, whatever, way bigger audience than myself and even you. And he's like, that was so cool, you got invited to that. Like, how do you get up into those upper echelon? And I was like, oh no, I snuck into that and recorded it. I'm pretty sure it was illegal. But he had already gone on that. Like, he went on a journey with me before we ever met. And now we're talking about doing business together. Of course, you're the guy. So.
Yeah, well, I do know this. I think I still think we're early, and especially in our space, like commercial real estate. No, I don't know anybody doing it well and just killing it. And what's crazy to think is you and I are among a group of pioneers trying to figure out social media and video and all this stuff in our space.
Yes. And to your point, and maybe this is a good place to end. You saw my recent post because we've been toying around with this idea. I ask all of my audience, what commercial real estate podcast do you listen to? And to my knowledge, like, I've looked at them, a bunch of them I've heard, and looked through ones I hadn't heard. I don't think there's anyone doing there. I don't know of anyone doing something like this. I know there's similar things, but like a mission to improve the sales life through friendship. I didn't see that out there, so I'm hoping this continues to be authentic, enjoyable, and something that helps people.
Sure.
Like, if you're writing a post where 200,000 people are being helped, like, how much more so? How could that multiply as people actually hear you talk about it, and hear me try to make stupid jokes? It could be really good. So,
dude, you just keep showing up with those collared shirts and that perfectly done hair. We're just gonna keep rolling with this.
Sean Ward, no collars, by the way.
No,
we couldn't be more opposite.
It's Saturday,
can't live.
Dude.
I feel so. If I was talking to you in a t-shirt, it would feel like pajamas.
Buddy,
I would feel
this is one of my nicer t-shirts. Okay, I put the nice t-shirt on.
It's ironed. It's good.
It's good, man.
No, I actually slept in a collar last night. I don't know. It just feels much better. So, dude, successful episode. We'll be back next week for another Sales Life. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, man. No, appreciate you, dude. I like this.
Hey, remember,
Sean, hanging
Sean,
out.
You don't need more intensity. You need more consistency.
There you go. I guess we'll have to do this again.